Hola amigos, ¿cómo están? Soy Joani. En la clase de hoy vamos a practicar preguntas y expresiones en el pasado. So recently, guys, we have been working our way through the past tense in Spanish. Now today, what I wanted to do was practice forming sentences and questions in the imperfect past tense. Cool, so remember, before we get into things, as I've mentioned previously, one of the most effective ways to learn Spanish, in my opinion so far, is not only by speaking and saying the words out loud, but by also reading and visually seeing the words in front of you as well. So at any point during the session, feel free to pause the video if you need to, practice saying the words out loud as well, because believe me, it does really help. Cool, so one basic sentence starter that really helped me was using the simple phrase of cuando era. So cuando era, which translates to when I was. So remember, era is the your form of said in the imperfect past tense. So when I was, so the cool thing about this phrase is really easy to learn, obviously. Now we can add on other basic words to that to help start off a sentence. So some words we could use, for example, we've learnt the word joven before. So joven, adolescente, or niño, which is an easy one. So let's go with joven to start off with. So how would you say when I was young? Yeah, you'd simply say cuando era joven. So cuando era joven, so when I was young. So one effective formula that worked for me was using cuando era joven in this instance. Adding on a conjugated verb, so some useful verbs would be gustar, querer, tener, poder. So using that in the conjugated form and then adding on another verb straight after that in its infinitive or basic form. So really good way to start off a sentence. All right, so let me give you a few examples. We're going to use the verb gustar in this case. So first of all, we've previously gone through in the present tense how you'd say I like or it pleases me. So you'd simply say me gusta. So me gusta. Now how would you conjugate that in the imperfect past tense? Yeah, pretty simple. We've been through it before. So it'd just be me gustaba. So me gustaba. So how would you say, when I was young, I liked to swim? So when I was young, I liked or I used to like to swim. Yeah, not too difficult using that formula. You'd simply say, cuando era joven, me gustaba nadar. So cuando era joven, me gustaba nadar. All right, let me give you another example. How would you translate, when I was young, I used to like studying science? Cool. So again, that formula. Cuando era joven, me gustaba estudiar ciencia. So cuando era joven, me gustaba estudiar ciencia. All right, so should be starting to make sense, but let me give you another one. When I was young, I used to like playing video games. So when I was young, I liked to play video games. So, cuando era joven, me gustaba jugar videojuegos. So, cuando era joven, me gustaba jugar videojuegos. All right, cool. So is that starting to kind of make sense? All right, let's change it up a little bit. Let's be a little bit more specific, but still using the imperfect tense. Let's say when I was a teenager. So how would we say that again? Remember, we'd say cuando era adolescente. So cuando era adolescente. So when I was a teenager, I used to have 2 cats. How would you translate that? Cool. So we'll be using tener this time. So cuando era adolescente, tenía 2 gatos. So cuando era adolescente, tenía 2 gatos. So gustar obviously is a really useful one. Tener as well. Let's use another one with tener. Let's say, when I was a teenager, I used to have to walk to school every day. So I'll make it a little bit harder. When I was a teenager, I used to have to walk to school every day. Cool, so again, remember that formula. Cuando era adolescente, tenía que caminar a la escuela todos los días. So cuando era adolescente, tenía que caminar a la escuela todos los días. So we've been through it before. Remember, with tener, when you're following it up with another verb, you'd have to say que. So tenía que or tengo que. In this instance, it's exactly the same in the imperfect tense. Cool, so one of the most useful things about this phrase is if you wanted to flip it around and use it speaking about the person that you're speaking with, you'd simply add on an S onto the end of era, and that is the tu form of the verb ser. So if you wanted to say when you were young, for example, you'd simply say cuando eras joven. So let's change it up a little bit. If you wanted to ask someone, when you were young, did you like studying French, as an example, how would you say that? Cool, so you'd simply say, cuando eras joven, te gustaba estudiar francés. So, cuando eras joven, te gustaba estudiar francés. Not too difficult now that we've got that formula in our head. Let me give you another one. When you were young, what did you like to do? So, when you were young, what did you like to do? Nice. So you'd say, cuando eras joven, ¿qué te gustaba hacer? So, cuando eras joven, ¿qué te gustaba hacer? Cool. So finally, before we finish, another useful thing about this phrase is, in the imperfect tense, one thing that I really like is the yo form and the el, ea, or usted form. The conjugations are exactly the same. Okay, so it saves you remembering another specific conjugation. So for example, if you wanted to say, when my brother was young, he used to like running. So when my brother was young, he used to like running. How would we translate that? So cuando mi hermano era joven, le gustaba correr. So cuando mi hermano era joven, le gustaba correr. So since the yo form and the el and ea usted form is exactly the same conjugation, there are times where if it's not specific who you're talking about, you will need to just use pronouns or names to specify who you're talking about. Alright, cool. But apart from that, guys, that is all from me. So can you see why that phrase and that formula is so useful when you're speaking about things in the past tense? Alright, so as always, if you've got any other questions at all, feel free to give me a message. But apart from that, that's it from me. Hasta pronto.